take a look for a brief amount of time, a couple of minutes. We mentioned that we talk about Eretz Yisrael a bit as a tikkun for the Chet HaMeraglim, the 3 weeks beginning Shivas B'Tammuz, culminating in Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, 2 of the 5 that happened on Tisha B'Av with the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash, destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. It happened on Tisha B'Av because the Chet HaMeraglim occurred on Tisha B'Av. The Meraglim came back and said whatever they said, the FS word, the Ramban says, everything's great in there, it's so, but the Ramban and Pasha Shlach says the Chet HaMeraglim was the word FS, but take a look at the Ramban in Pasha's Shlach. The Aveira is when people talk about Eretz Yisrael, they say it's great, it's beautiful, it's this and that, but I got to tell you a couple of things. That begins the downfall of the Meraglim. There's a lot of ways to talk about Eretz Yisrael. You can discuss the facts of Eretz Yisrael. Once you say Eretz Yisrael is beautiful, it's this, it's that, but you're going to have a tough time with chinuch here. Eretz Yisrael is great, it's beautiful, it's an unbelievable place. You got to be in Eretz Yisrael sukkahs. You cannot. It's absolutely beautiful. Chol Hamoed in Eretz Yisrael, it's unbelievable. People are not working. It's like Chaloniyim. Everyone's in the parks. Chol Hamoed Pesach. The Chol Hamoed sukkahs. It's unbelievable. It is observed. Chol Hamoed is Chol Hamoed. It's beautiful in Eretz Yisrael, but the parnas is unbelievably hard. There are different ways to say the same thing. Efes, but, or however, is already giving a person what we would call the other side of the coin. Eretz Yisrael is beautiful, but I need to tell you the other side of the coin. It ain't so great because, and you're not allowed to talk about Eretz Yisrael that way with the Efes. And that was the Chet HaMeraglim of Tisha B'Av. And the Ribbono Shel Olam said, the Gemara tells us in Tainus, the Jewish people cried on the night of Tisha B'Av, we don't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. The Ribbono Shel Olam said, I want to give you a beautiful gift of Eretz Yisrael, and you're crying for no reason. I will give you plenty of reasons to cry on Tisha B'Av in the future. So Tisha B'Av, where we sit on the ground, Kinnis and Eicha, and we cry over the Churban Beis Hamikdash, it happened that day because that's the day of the Chet HaMeraglim. Rav Kook says that the appropriate thing to do during the 3 weeks is to try to repair the Chet HaMeraglim and talk about the beauty of Eretz Yisrael without the Efes. Talk about the beauty of Eretz Yisrael. So we talked about the Ramban the last few days. The Ramban in the Sefer, in his Hagoys, in his comments on the Rambam, Nachmanides' comments on Rambam's Sefer Mitzvahs. The Rambam wrote a Sefer counting the 613 mitzvahs. The Ramban says that certain of the mitzvahs the Rambam counted should not be counted and others should be put in. One of them is the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, and that's in this week's Parsha, Parshas Matis Maseh. In Parshas Maseh, the pasuk says, "V'irashtem es ha'aretz v'shaftem ba." God said to us, "You shall conquer the land and settle it." It's a mitzvah saseh d'oraisa, one of the 613 mitzvahs. The Ramban says, Rambam, my mind is notwithstanding what some people want to say, does not hold any differently. There's just a question whether it's one of the 613 mitzvahs. But there's no question the Rambam holds as an absolute requirement to live in Eretz Yisrael. Take a look in Hilchos Malachim. The Rambam quotes all the Gemaras and Ksubas about the requirement to live in Eretz Yisrael and the prohibition to leave Eretz Yisrael except under certain circumstances. The Ramban said that this mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisrael has nothing to do with the Beis Hamikdash. It's Kol Hadoros. Every generation has a mitzvah as one is able to conquer the land and to settle the land. The Ramban, at the end of the piece that we read yesterday, brought down a Maisa of 4 Tanoim who had to leave Eretz Yisrael, and they're walking, and they cross the border, and they're in Chutz La'aretz, and they realize that they're now in Chutz La'aretz, and it says, the Medrash says, they turned around, and they looked back, and they saw Eretz Yisrael in the distance. They lifted up their heads and cried, and they ripped their garments because they realized they were out of Eretz Yisrael. And they said, Shivas Eretz Yisrael Shkula K'chol HaMitzvos. Living, performing the mitzvah of settling Eretz Yisrael is the equivalent of all other mitzvahs. The question is, what is so important about Eretz Yisrael, living in Eretz Yisrael, and why are these Tanoim crying? Your tefillin, you can take your tefillin with you to Chutz La'aretz. Your tzitzis, you can take your tzitzis with you in Chutz La'aretz. If there's no Beis HaMikdash, there's no Beis HaMikdash. So even if there is a Beis HaMikdash, whenever I need to go to Beis HaMikdash, I live in Sweden. Every so often, for Pesach, I have to come to the Beis HaMikdash to bring my Korban Pesach. Shavua Sukkot, I have to be Oila Regel. Question Chagiga. The people in Chutz La'aretz, do they have to come? Fine. I have to come a minimal amount of times to the Beis HaMikdash. I want to be a nice guy. I'll live in Eretz Yisrael near the Beis HaMikdash. Fine. There's no Beis HaMikdash. There's no Karbanis. My tzitzis I can wear in Borough Park. My tefillin I can wear in Monsey. I can put up my mezuzahs in the 5 towns. Ma chasali. What am I missing here? Why does the Ramban think that there's a mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisrael? There's no Beis HaMikdash. There's nothing whatever I need to do, I can do outside Eretz Yisrael. Trumas u'maasros. Okay. Trumas u'maasros means that if I have a field and I'm growing things, I have to take off Trumas u'maasros. There's no mitzvah in the Torah that a Jew has to go out and buy a field and plant wheat so that he can take off Trumas u'maasros. No mitzvah in the Torah that a Jew has to buy a piece of land in Eretz Yisrael and plant an olive tree so you can take off Trumas u'maasros. There's no such mitzvah. If you own the tree, you own the field, you have to take off Trumas u'maasros. So ma chasali. I live in Chutz La'aretz. I have my tefillin, my mezuzahs, my tzitzis, my Shabbos, alle Geschmack Sachen. I have everything. What is the difference if there's no Beis HaMikdash, if I do my mitzvahs in Chutz La'aretz, if I do my mitzvahs in Eretz Yisrael? So the Ramban comments on a Rashi, which we spoke about many times in Shir, but it's kedai to go over these things 100 times until we live it. There's so many things that we know. You can know something, and yet it doesn't seep down into the heart. You know it. You know a lot of things, but it hasn't made an impact yet on our lives. That's a completely different issue. What you know and whether it's changed in your life are 2 different things. So we're going to take a look at a Rashi, and it's a Rashi that we should be thinking of 2 times a day. It's a Rashi in Parshas Eikev, and it's a Rashi on the Parsha of V'hoya im Shemoah. The second Parsha of Kriya Shema, V'hoya im Shemoah tishmor mitzvosai. We say it twice a day. In that Parsha, it says, Chas v'sholom, Jews are oved avodah zarah. God will become angry with us. You will be exiled from the land. You'll go into Golus. Next pasuk, we know this from Kriya Shema. You should put the words on your heart. Put the tefillin on your hand. And put the tefillin on your head. Continue learning Torah. And put up mezuzahs on your houses. So what's the flow of the psukim here? Chas shalom, you do averos, God will exile you from the land. Now that you're exiled from the land and you're in Chutz La'aretz, Nebuch, don't forget to put your tefillin on your hand. Don't forget to put the tefillin on your head. Don't forget to keep on learning Torah. And don't forget to put the mezuzahs on your doors. The kasha is simple. What is Rebbeinu Shalom telling me that if I go to Chutz La'aretz and go into Golus, I have to do these mitzvahs? There are 2 types of mitzvahs in the 613 mitzvahs. There's a chiyuv guf and a chiyuv karka. There's an obligation that is on the human body that deals with the person. There are obligations that deal with a piece of land. Shemitah deals with a piece of land. The mitzvah of Shemitah is in Eretz Yisrael. It deals with a piece of land. Truma deals with things that grow in the land. Maisa grows in, it has to pay you. All these things are land mitzvahs. These are specifically mitzvahs of the land of Eretz Yisrael. If you're not in the land of Eretz Yisrael, there's no Shemitah. There's no Truma. There's no Maisa. That's simple. On the other hand, there's Chayvus Haguf. The other mitzvahs are about the person. keeping Shabbos, putting on your talis, putting on your tefillin, taras hamishpacha. Has nothing to do with the land. And we all know it's a rule in the Masechta Kiddushin. Anything that's a chovas haguf, anything that is a personal mitzvah, has nothing to do with the land, doesn't make a difference where you are. You have to put on tefillin wherever you are. You're in Jamaica, you're in Wisconsin, you're in Canada, doesn't make a difference. People don't go to their rabbonim and say, listen, I have to make a trip to Canada, or I have to put on my tefillin. Of course you have to put on tefillin. What kind of question is that? Tefillin is tefillin. It has nothing to do with the land of Eretz Yisrael. By the same token, people have to take a trip, and it's the year of Shemitah. They don't ask their Rav, I have to go to Canada for a couple of weeks, so I have to keep Shemitah in Canada. There's no Shemitah in Canada. I'm not talking about the fruits of Shemitah that may have gotten to Canada, which is different shayla. We understand when you're in Canada, you don't keep Shemitah. And when you're in Canada, you obviously have to put on your tefillin and keep Shabbos. So why is the Rebbeinu Shalom telling us, if Chas v'Sholom, if you go into exile because you're Oved Avodah Zarah, I want to remind you, put your tefillin on your hand, put your tefillin on your head, keep on studying Torah, and put the mitzvahs on your door. Of course I'm going to do these mitzvahs. It has nothing to do with Eretz Yisrael. So Rashi comments, we say these psukim twice a day, and we should think about this Rashi twice a day. Rashi comments and says, V'samtem estaborai, af la'acha shetiglu heyu mitzuyanim b'mitzvahs. Even after Chas v'Sholom, I have to exile you, be mitzuyanim b'mitzvahs. Exemplify the mitzvahs, continue performing the mitzvahs. Hanichu tefillin, put on your tefillin. Asu mezuzahs, put up the mezuzahs. Why? Kedei shelo yu lachem chadoshim kshetachseru. So that when you come back to Eretz Yisrael, these things should not be new. That's why you keep mitzvahs and chutz la'aretz. Keep mitzvah and chutz la'aretz because Lo'aleinu, we're in Galus already 2,000 years. Imagine the matzav if the Yidden who lived in exile for all these years, we made aliyah, but we would have been the descendants of exiled Jews. We would have been exiled for 1,800, 1,900 years, and we made aliyah. And for the 1,800 years, our parents, grandparents, Elta Zedas, Elta Bubas, going all the way back from the time that they were exiled by the Romans. They went to Africa, they went to Canada, they went to New Zealand, they went to America. Nobody puts on tefillin, nobody put up many mitzvahs because you don't have to keep these mitzvahs and chutz la'aretz. And now suddenly you make aliyah, Mashiach comes, and nobody knows what to do. I haven't heard of this thing. What's a mezuzah? I haven't heard about this in 1,800 years. What's tefillin? I don't even know what it is. So we would have to have a refresher course. We'd have to start, literally the Torah would have to be given a second time, as the Maharal says. We would literally need another Har Sinai. 1,800 years later, nobody would know anything about these mitzvahs. So we would have to have Matan Torah again. The Maharal explains there can't be a second Matan Torah. At any point, Rashi's telling us here that the Rebbeinu Shalom is saying, when you're in exile, you need to keep your tefillin on. You need to put the mezuzah up, and you need to keep on learning Torah, not because it's the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, and not because it's the mitzvah of mezuzah, and not because it's a mitzvah of tefillin. It's because you need to do these things like a Boy Scout rule. Be prepared, because when you go back to Eretz Yisrael, you be familiar with these things. Otherwise, you're not going to know what's going on when Mashiach comes. That's why you keep mitzvahs in chutz la'aretz. The Ramban in Parshas Achrei Mos, commenting on this Rashi, this is in Vayikra Yudches. Ramban in Vayikra Yudches in Parshas Achrei Mos, Yudches Chof Hei. Perek Yudches, Pasuk Chof Hei. The Ramban says, he quotes the Rashi, Kadeshlu Chadoshim Oleinu Kshenachsel Oretz. The reason why it says in the second Pasha Kriya Shema that you keep mitzvahs and chutz la'aretz is so that they shouldn't be new when you get back to Eretz Yisrael. Otherwise, you won't know what's flying. Ki ikka kol hamitzvahs liyoshrim be'eretz Hashem. The ikka place to be makayim mitzvahs is in God's land. God's intention was that tefillin are meant for Eretz Yisrael. Mezuzahs are meant for Eretz Yisrael. Everything has a place and a time. When do you daven Shachris? When do you daven Mincha? When do you eat matzah? When do you shake a lulav? When do you build a sukkah? When do you keep Shabbos? Mitzvahs have a time, and mitzvahs have a place. The place for 613 mitzvahs is Eretz Yisrael. That was the original plan. Mitzvahs should be done in Eretz Yisrael. Nebuch, Jews don't merit Eretz Yisrael and they're sent into Golus. The Rebbeinu Shalom tells us in the second parsha of Kriya Shema, Kindalach, you're going to keep on the tefillin and keep the mezuzahs because I'm going to bring you back to Eretz Yisrael. I don't want you to be in need of a refresher course. But the Ikar Kiyum HaMitzvahs is in Eretz Yisrael. And in Chutz La'aretz, the mitzvahs are being kept. Shlo yu alecha chadoshim. It's to make sure that you don't forget them. Like a different kind of mitzvah. And so, when the four Tanoim that the Ramban quotes from the Medrash are leaving Eretz Yisrael, they're looking back and they see in the distance Eretz Yisrael. They cry. They rip their clothing. Because, yeah, they took their tefillin with them. And yes, they're going to daven in Chutz La'aretz. But it's not the same thing. Because as long as you're doing the mitzvahs in Eretz Yisrael, you're doing the mitzvah in the right time, in the right place. If someone wants to eat matzah today, enjoy your matzah. Today you can have matzah and hummus. For those Ashkenazim, obviously, we don't get to eat the hummus and the tchina and Pesach, but it's gishmak. Matzah, tchina, matzah, hummus, mamish gishmak. And if you ever tasted it, you understand when you come to Pesach how much a difference a little hummus and tchina can make on that matzah and how much the Sfardim are enjoying it. Enjoy yourself. Take out a piece of matzah today and eat it. Will you makayim a mitzvah of achilas matzah? No. Why? God told you to eat matzah. He told you to eat matzah. Yeah, but he told you when to eat the matzah. It doesn't. You don't have to eat matzah today. If you want to eat matzah, it's not a perfect marshal. But the Rebbeinu Shalom said, "I want you to put on tefillin." When? In the morning. Can I wear them at night? Question the Gemara. But for us, the Rebbeinu Shalom says, "I want you to wear tefillin." When? During the day. Where? In Eretz Yisrael. Should I put them on a Chutz La'aretz? Yes, put them on a Chutz La'aretz so that when I bring it back to Eretz Yisrael, you don't forget them. That's how the dialogue would occur according to the Ramban. So these Tanoim are in Chutz La'aretz with their tefillin. They recognize that the mitzvah of tefillin that they're going to do in Chutz La'aretz, it's not the same level mitzvah as it was in Eretz Yisrael. It's just not the same tefillin mitzvah. Last year, on Tisha B'Av, I spoke in a shul. I was asked to speak in a shul in Mishkafayim on Tisha B'Av. And after I spoke, another Rav was coming in to speak. And this Rav arrived a few minutes early, and so he heard the last few minutes of my drasha. And I was talking about this Ramban. Ramban says that the Ikar Kiyum Kol HaMitzvahs is in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so we say, okay, Lublin said it, the Ramban says it. What does it really mean? It means that the real place to do mitzvahs in Eretz Yisrael, but if you do it in Chutz La'aretz, it's to make sure you don't forget. Very nice. I'm going to say it over at the Shabbos table. What difference does it really make? It's Eretz Yisrael, Chutz La'aretz, the same tefillin, same parsha, same bracha, everything's the same. So this Rav, who was a Talmud, is a Talmud of Rav Nevin Sal, I may have asked him Shona, came over to me after I finished speaking, and he said, I want to tell you something. Rav Nevin Sal has told his Talmidim that if they're in Chutz La'aretz and they put on their tefillin and they daven, you went to England. You're in England in the morning, you put on your tefillin, you daven, you took a flight back to Eretz Yisrael, you get back to Eretz Yisrael, and it's still daytime. Rav Nevin Sal himself and instructs his Talmidim to put on tefillin a second time. Because the tefillin that they wore in England is the tefillin of just make sure you don't forget tefillin. But the Ikka mitzvah, the Ramban says, is dafka in Eretz Yisrael. So while you're in Chutz La'aretz, you put on tefillin for a reason. You should need a refresher course. But the Ikka mitzvah is to have your tefillin on while you're in Eretz Yisrael. And since earlier in the morning you were in England when you put your tefillin on, which is not the place of the Ikka mitzvah, when you get to Eretz Yisrael and it's still daylight, put on the tefillin again, so you can do the real Ikka mitzvah in Eretz Yisrael. It's a psak of Rav Nevitzah. So the Ramban is not giving us some kind of a Gadic message to discuss at the Shabbos table about how beautiful and wonderful and important Eretz Yisrael is. It has halachic ramifications. And so our four Tanoim are crying when they left Eretz Yisrael with their tefillin, obviously, but they understand that tefillin is not going to be the same thing. So now, what does the Yetzer Hara have to do to a Yid when he's in the Chutz La'aretz? The Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is not going to convince our Yiddelach not to put on tefillin. We don't wake up in Borough Park in Muncie. We don't wake up in the Five Town. We don't wake up in Canada. Don't put on your tefillin today. Let's see if we can get away with it. And the Maral talks about this. We don't have these kind of Yetzer Haras not to put on tefillin. We don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I don't want to put on my tzitzis today. It's a fight for the tzitzis. We don't really wake up with a Yetzer Hara. I'm not going to keep Shabbos. I want to see what not keeping Shabbos is like one week. We don't have a Yetzer Hara for, I'm not lighting Shabbos candles this week. We don't have to fight the Yetzer Hara on these things. But the Yetzer Hara has a nuclear weapon. Nuclear weapon. The Yetzer Hara comes to our Yidel in America, and he says, continue wearing the tefillin. It's beautiful. Continue building koilim in America. They're great. Continue making all kinds of chesed organizations. They're great. Mezuzahs, yeshivas. Keep this work up. This is great. This is wonderful. Keep on throwing the banquets to add additions and additions and additions to the building. But as soon as the Yid starts thinking to himself, I want to go to Eretz Yisrael, you have literally pulled out a gun on the Yetzer Hara. Because what you've just said to the Yetzer Hara is, I'm taking my mezuzah to Eretz Yisrael, which is a whole new level of mezuzah. It's Eretz Yisrael mezuzah. I'm going to take my tzitzis to Eretz Yisrael. Ooh, it's now Eretz Yisrael tzitzis. I'm going to take my Shabbos to Eretz Yisrael. It's Eretz Yisrael Shabbos. Now what you've said to the Yetzer Hara is, I'm not going to make one mitzvah better. I'm going to take all the mitzvahs that I do and lift them up in one time by going to Eretz Yisrael. You're putting a dagger in the heart of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara can be sayvel. All right, you want to learn another 15 minutes a day in Borough Park, Ishmak, learn another 15 minutes. You want to build an extension to the shul so another 100 Jews can daven in Chutz La'aretz. Go ahead, do it. There'll be a banquet. You'll get a plaque. You'll be on the Gishmak. I'll do it. But you start talking to the Yetzer Hara about taking all your sack of mitzvahs. I'm taking my tefillin, I'm taking my tzitzin, I'm taking my Shabbos, I'm taking my Taras HaMishpacha, I'm taking my matzah, I'm taking my lulav, I'm taking my soul, I'm taking them all. I'm putting it in one bag and taking them to Eretz Yisrael, and I'm lifting them up to the mitzvah of Sukkah of Eretz Yisrael, lulav of Eretz Yisrael. You're killing the Yetzer Hara. So what does the Yetzer Hara do? He only has one Eitzah. He has to drop a nuclear weapon because this is a major assault on the Yetzer Hara. It's not attacking the Yetzer Hara on a mitzvah. It's attacking the Yetzer Hara on the whole sack of mitzvahs. I'm going to lift up all my mitzvahs by going to Eretz Yisrael. The Yetzer Hara does the nuclear attack. You can't go to Eretz Yisrael. You got to stay here because it is. My grandchildren don't understand Hebrew. I don't have a parnasa. It's culturally different. Aliyah is difficult. Eretz Yisrael is nickness for Yisurim, and all the frumah stuff that we get. Why? Because the Yetzer Hara is very frum. The Yetzer Hara is frum. I say this many times. When you walk into a beis medrash and you're going to learn, there's no door in front of the beis medrash to remove Yetzer Hara from your head and park him there and go into the beis medrash and only learn with Yetzer Tov. When you're learning in the beis medrash, the Yetzer Hara hears everything you're learning, and he becomes a Talmud Chacham too, and he gets his grubber finger. Boy, does the Yetzer Hara get a grubber finger. He's learning in the beis medrash. Everything you're learning, he hears. and he's going to use it when he needs to use it. He's going to tell you about, didn't you learn brachas daf heyam and aleph? Eretz Yisrael's nickness for Yisurim. Are you ready for Yisurim? Are you allowed to put your wife through Yisurim? Are you allowed to put your kids through such a cultural change? Are you allowed to do this? You have to speak to your Rav. Your Rav, who's 78 years old, he's been the Rav in the shul for 50 years, and he's not encouraged anybody to make Aliyah. He's the person to ask whether you should make Aliyah, because he's been in America as a Rav for 50 years. So of course he's the person to ask about whether you should make Aliyah. At any rate, it's 3 weeks. We have to begin to understand that the Chashivas of Eretz Yisrael is more than just Eretz Yisrael. It uplifts every single mitzvah we do here, because the mitzvahs we do in Chutz La'aretz, we read the Ramban, but forget the Ramban. It's Rashi in Chumash, in Vahoyim Shemoyah that you read twice a day. You do a mitzvah in Eretz Yisrael, it's on a higher level than doing the same exact thing in Chutz La'aretz, because in Chutz La'aretz it's just a Boy Scout rule. Don't let the mitzvahs be forgotten, otherwise you won't know what's flying when Mashiach comes. And that's Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael lifts us up, it lifts up every mitzvah we do here, and that's where we want to be in Eretz Yisrael. There was an article that someone sent me yesterday. It was written by, I think it's Tzvi Fishman. I wanted to mention a different article that he wrote. I'm going to send you both. I'm going to ask Shmuel to send out both articles. The first article is a very interesting article. He writes Mishalom. It's a mashal about Jews who built themselves a prison, and then they get to love living in prison. And when the warden says you can leave, they say, no, we're enjoying life here. And that's a mashal for Jews in Golus. It's a prison, it's Golus. You should want to get out. And originally when you got to prison, you wanted to get out, but the conditions became so nice in prison. You don't have to work, you get food, you get a color TV. Eventually, the warden lets you make minyanim. Eventually, the warden brings in glatt kosher food with 45 hashgachas on it. You get chalav Yisrael in prison. And eventually, the warden comes and says, your sentence is over. You can leave. You say, leave where? I don't want to leave. If I leave and I go out there, I have to go to work and earn a living. I love it here. This is great. I have shiurim in prison. I have chalav Yisrael in prison. I have minyanim in prison. Lozimir, I want to stay in prison. That's the Golus mentality. I'll send you that article. He writes it in a wonderful way. But he wrote another article in the last few days from the last pasuk in Parshas Pinchas, where the Jews began having relations with the Gentile women. So it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, Kachas kol Rashi ha'am, take the heads of the Jewish people, v'hoka osam l'Hashem neged hashemesh, and hang them on trees in the sunlight. So Rashi says it doesn't really mean that Moshe was told to hang, to execute the Jewish leaders. It means the people who were involved in this avera with the Gentile women. The Zohar HaKadosh, however, says that if the pasuk means exactly what it says. Moshe Rabbeinu was commanded to take certain leaders of Klal Yisrael and hang them up. Hang them, because they are responsible for what's going on in Klal Yisrael. And if Klal Yisrael can begin having, on a mass scale, relations with Gentile women, get the leaders, hang them up, and find yourself new leaders. That's what the Zohar HaKadosh says. So Tzvi Fishman wrote an article called Hang 'em High. And the subject of the article is, where is the American leadership, the American Jewish leadership, the Rabbanim, the Rosh Yeshivas, where have they been all these years? Where have the Jewish people in America are still talking crazy? The riots will pass, and everything's going to pass, and the corona is going to pass, and Black Lives Matter will pass, and the defunding the police will pass. Everything's going to pass without an iota of understanding that we're in the middle of the Chevle Mashiach. The society's being ripped apart in preparation for a new world that's coming. And no one is preparing, with very, 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 very few exceptions, no one is preparing the Kehillah with the message, get out now. It is time to get out. Now, people are doing it on their own. Nefesh B'Nefesh has an unbelievable amount of applications. The Hamoin, the grassroots people, are getting up and doing it on their own. But the idea that Rosh Yeshivas and the Brit Rabbanim are not getting together and saying, Rabbi Sai, we have to have a serious chat. Maybe they should have the serious chat like they had the Siyum Hashas. They have to rent some stadiums and talk to Klal Yisrael on a massive level and talk in one voice like was a Siyam Hashas and say, listen, we are in the birth pangs of Mashiach. We are in Chevle Mashiach. This is the matzah. This is what we think you should do. It's not happening. And people are trying to figure out on their own what they need to do. And that's a very unfortunate situation, where the leadership itself can't take the lead and tell Klal Yisrael in these desperate times what they should do. The Rosh Hashanah should give everybody the seichel to understand what they need to do, to understand the chashivas of Eretz Yisrael, to love Eretz Yisrael, to understand that this is the place that they need to come to for mitzvahs. And Tzvi Fisherman makes the point, come to do the mitzvahs in Eretz Yisrael. Try not to come to Eretz Yisrael to escape what's happening. Try not to make Eretz Yisrael an Ari Mikvah, which we spoke about weeks ago. Come to Eretz Yisrael because you understand finally the chashivas of Eretz Yisrael. Those who need Yeshuas should have Yeshuas. Those who need Refuah should have Refuahs. Those who need Nechamas should have Nechamas. Those who need have brachas, they should get the brachas. All brachas, Yeshuas, Nechamas, Refuahs can only come from the Bnei Shalom because he's Echad, Yochanan, Yuchad. It can only come through him. He has different ways of sending it through different people, through different places, through different times, but it all happens only at the Ratzon Hashem. And we ask the Ribono Shel Olam to rid us of this corona, to rid us of all the tzaras, and to send Mashiach Tzidkenu Me'er Yameinu to bring about the perfection of this imperfect world. We should be able to see on the human level how every event fit together perfectly in the Ribono Shel Olam's Chachma Hamuka. Everybody have a wonderful day. Sei gesund.